By fans, for fans, the Hog Style. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Hogstyes post-game show, brought to you by our friends at ticketclub.com. Got a whopper of a disappointment to talk to you about today. The Redskins drop one at home against Indianapolis, 21-9, now 1-1 on the year. And here I was, ready to go in all my gear. Here to talk the game with me are Steve Thomas, Alex Zeese, and Jamal Forrest. Let's get into it. Guys, how are you? Are you dealing with this disappointment well?
What kind of disappointment are you talking about? The Redskins have played a great game. They are 2-0 on the season. They look like they belong. They look like they wanted to win the game. I'm very excited to see that they could come out 2 weeks in a row and look strong and look like they're a real NFL team.
Pass those drugs this way, my friend, because they sound good. Jamal, are you able to shed any positivity on this? Did you see anything? Are you dealing with this okay?
It takes like an hour or two to get over it. But I mean, even still, like right now,
True story.
I'm doing okay. But we'll talk about it as we get into the show. But I'm doing fine. It's not like I'm super surprised. I put it that way.
Yeah. Alex, what about you? Are you ready to get into our first loss of this season, dude?
Well, we knew it was going to happen sooner or later.
We did.
I'm going to just quote somebody, one of our commenters on our blog, because, we get some fun comments. Better comments, I think, in a loss, because people get bitter in a weird way.
True story.
Yeah.
True story.
So I'm just going to quote the one who stares at goats, one of our regular commenters on game day. Instead of dress shirts, the offensive line should really start wearing tutus all week in practice. And that sounds about right.
Agreed.
Agreed. I've never seen running backs get hit in the backfield that quickly as there was a Thompson run where he literally got hit before he got the ball at one point.
Well, we had 31 yards rushing at halftime, so there you go.
Yes.
Yeah,
That was not impressive.
As the day went on either.
No, not really.
No.
It didn't, and it was a polar opposite performance from what we saw last week. A total team failure on this one. But before we get into details, Steve, you want to hit us with stats or anything
let's
first?
do them because we got to. Alex Smith's day didn't look too bad on the day strictly from a number standpoint. He was 33 of 46 for 292 yards, 6.3 yards per attempt, no touchdowns, no interceptions, 88.3 quarterback rating. Jamison Crowder was our leading rusher, amazingly enough. 2 carries for 29 yards. Adrian Peterson was 11 carries for 20 yards. Alex Smith was 4 carries for 14 yards. As a team, they were 22 for 65. Yuck. Chris Thompson was our leading receiver, 13 receptions, 92 yards. Paul Richardson.
My goodness.
Yeah, Paul Richardson had 4 receptions for 63 yards. 15.8 yards per attempt. Jordan Reed showed up in the second half. I assume he missed the team bus in the first half, but he ended up with 6 receptions, 55 yards. The apostle Josh Doxson, 4 receptions, 37 yards. Adrian Peterson was 3 for 30. Let's see. Fumbles. Jordan Reed lost 1 fumble. On defense, Mason Foster, 11 tackles, 8 solo. Zach Brown, 10 tackles, 4 solo. Josh Norman, 7 tackles, 4 solo. We had Matt Ioannidis had the 1 sack on the day. DJ Swearinger had 2 interceptions. And on the Colts side, Andrew Luck, 21 for 31, 179 yards. The Colts as a team are 28 for 104 yards rushing, 3.7 yards per attempt. Jordan Wilkins was 10 carries for 61 yards. Oops. And T.Y. Hilton had 7 receptions for 83 yards and a touchdown. And that is stats.
Ugh.
Yikes. Yeah. So pretty terrible game. A lot of those yards came in the second half. It seemed like that game started off really, really bad early, and we couldn't get anything done. In fact, I think by halftime there, Peterson was in the negative. I know it happened.
We had 126 total yards from scrimmage at halftime.
And almost all of them were either Jamison Crowder running or dump-off passes to a running back.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Ouch.
When a wide receiver leads you in running and a running back leads you in receiving, that's not good. These are 2 things that should not happen on the same day.
You know what struck me most about this game? I mean, obviously the Redskins sucked. They didn't play really in any phase of the game particularly well. They got beaten on the offensive line, defensive line. But really struck me was that this game reminded me of Jay Gruden 2015 through 2017.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
In terms of his play calling, I thought he had an off day on his play calling. But it just goes to – and the other thing is it goes to show you the value of a run game. Because last week we had a run game that was working, and everything was well. And this week we had just utterly a complete lack of a run game. Because really and truly, the running backs, which are Adrian Peterson, Rob Kelly, went 12 for 21 yards. Forget Jamison Crowder.
Yeah.
Forget Alex Smith. Forget Chris Thompson. Actually, let's add Chris Thompson into that. He was 4 carries for 1 yard. So if you add all that up, we've got 16 carries for 21 yards from the running backs.
I mean, you can always put some of this on the backs, but this was a front line just getting their ass kicked. And I don't think, like we always keep saying, we have a really good line. We see too many games like this from our offensive line in the run game. To really be good, you can't let these games happen.
Yeah, amen to that. In fact, I think 2 of those things that were just mentioned, offensive line by Alex and play calling by Steve, are probably 2 great places to start with where it all went wrong offensively for this team. So should we get into Redskins offense first?
Yeah, that was the big problem. Okay. So, yes.
How did it come out and just hit a wall immediately so poorly? Nothing worked. It seemed like, somebody mentioned they were keying in on the count, because it seemed like you mentioned, Alex, it seemed like there were a couple times guys took the handoff and they were immediately met. There was no, period there at all. So how were they so keyed in on us and it was just so ineffective, whereas last week we got stuff.
They got beat up front. Last week they won up front. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it.
That's it.
I think that's part of it, but I mean, it's a good point that you make that they were keying off on it. How many times did you see the Colts? I mean, they were offsides, and a couple times they got called. A couple times it got called as, the Redskins get a false start. But every time the Redskins got a false start, the Colts already had somebody in the backfield.
Yeah,
you saw it multiple times there. Probably 5, 6 plays where they were keying off on it. I don't know how.
So why do you think we saw so much less of the rollouts and the option plays and some of these more creative offensive plays that we saw to great effect last week? Instead, this seemed like a very vanilla game plan, and that just exacerbated that problem of these guys knowing exactly where we were going to be and just stuffing those holes.
Well, first of all, let's clarify. What you mean by option is a run-pass option. We actually did see a traditional option play, as in like what
pistol
is as in what is run in college. We saw a true option play to the left,
and it was fumbled for plus 8 yards or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I mean, look, to me, it starts in the trenches. They didn't play well in the trenches. If you play well in the trenches, it opens up rushing lanes. And that just didn't happen. If they're keying on the snap count or whatever the case may be, maybe Rui was tipping something. I don't know, but the bottom line is they got demolished in the trenches.
Yeah,
Jamal enlighten us.
Please.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the issue with the whole thing is not only did they get dominated, and I mean we y'all basically spoke on it. Not only did they get dominated, but when the interior pressure and the interior defensive line is winning pretty consistently throughout the day, like you don't have any push. Adrian Peterson, I don't know how many. I'd like to know. I don't know how many plays there was where Adrian Peterson had a handoff and he's getting smacked in the backfield. I know one coming out of the second half. It was one like a 5-yard loss. There was a few more. And it got to the point where, they were so aggressive, like that jet sweep look, period, in the first half was what was driving Jay Gruden. I don't know, like, the specifics, but I guess we'll listen to the post game and figure it out during the middle of the week. But that jet sweep look was just an attempt to get them, moving one way as a misdirection. And it still didn't work. Like, they were getting beat on the edge. They were getting beat up the middle. And then when you're left to drop back and pass, they don't think Alex Smith is going to challenge them downfield. So what's the point of even worrying about anything? I mean, obviously they're going to cover down there, but their focus is playing anything up short or making him throw those short passes. You just have to go up and make the tackle. They did that pretty consistently. The Redskins couldn't move the ball, so it was frustrating to watch. But the only thing I don't agree with, in terms of I take that back. Play calling in general, I had an issue with. But in certain situations, what I don't agree with is trying to run outside on the edges, the perimeter, instead of going up the gut it's in between the tackles, period. Don't even matter where, but what hole you hit. But in between the tackles, period, instead of trying to reach the edge on the stretches and stuff, you wasn't winning at all.
Yeah, that to start off that second half, they came out with a play like that. That was just like, what are you doing?
Well, you can also notice, that they did try to make some halftime adjustments. When we came out of the half, Alex Smith started looking deep. He didn't look deep. He looked mid-range to deep. And he didn't do that at all in the first half. And so I think that was Jay's attempt to loosen up the rushlings a little bit by getting the Colts defense to have to pay more attention to deep. It didn't work, obviously.
Right.
But I think that was at least an adjustment that they tried to make. It just failed. I do think that, I think that Jay gave up on the gap runs too early. Yes, Jamal. I mean, it had to have been 4 or 5 plays, I think, where AP got hit in the backfield.
It might even be more than that.
Yeah, we'll have to go watch
the first half. It was 5 runs for -3 yards. So,
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, he was
kind of tells the whole story there.
3 for 1 yard at halftime. Peterson.
Oh, he was 3 for 1 yard.
Yeah. The backs in general had, I think they totaled 9 carries. It was either 7 carries or 9 carries, and they only had 1 yard. So. Yeah. Jamison Crowder ended up being the leading rusher on the day. That was the leading rusher, and it's mind-boggling, honestly. There's ways to lose, but like when you find like new ways to lose after so many years of watching football, it's like it's like it leaves you speechless and so pissed off, like you don't even know, like.
It's almost impressive, though.
What I was really speechless about is I don't think anybody. I don't know. I shouldn't say anybody. I certainly didn't expect the Colts' defensive line to look so much better than the Cardinals' defensive line.
Yeah, right. Yeah. The Cardinals look a lot worse this week.
I just didn't accept that. Sorry, Jamal. Go ahead.
No. I wasn't trying to cut you off. I was going to say a little birdie on the pregame show did say something about that defensive line or something. I mean, but to be fair, I didn't even see that coming, honestly. Especially against our offensive line, how talented we are or how we perceive ourselves to be. And here's the thing: early on in the game, when I noticed, and I'm pretty sure a lot of us noticed, they ran a stunt on Laval in which they drove the defensive tackle, I want to say. I can't remember which position it was at this point, but I want to say the defensive tackle drove Laval into Trent Williams. He wasn't even pushing towards the quarterback. It was intended, to push him into Trent so the outside rusher can get a free lane into Alex Smith. But they attacked him a good portion of the game, and it just didn't look good for Laval. I don't know about the run game. I'd have to look, but in pass protection, he didn't look good.
I think that play you're talking about was the one where Laval turned around and watched Alex Smith get hit for a sack.
Yeah, he couldn't do anything. He was engaged with that one guy who pushed him into Trent, so he couldn't even do anything if he wanted to. He had that free run, they had him.
Alex,
yes,
are you okay? Lay there and don't move if you're okay. That's what Laval was saying after he watched him take that. Yeah,
I thought you were talking about our Alex there for a minute too.
I was like, yeah.
No, I know he's okay.
Well,
for the most part, at least. Well, I'll tell you one thing that's not okay would be these receivers. So can we just talk about that for a minute, too, and figure out what we're going to do about this receiving game? Because I think we've alluded to this already in the show. And, Steve, last week you were like, they can't stretch the field, but it hasn't been tested yet. Yeah. This was a test when we needed them, and it obviously didn't happen. So what are we going to do with receivers?
There's nothing you can do right now. I don't know what look, the team made a clear and distinct effort to get Paul Richardson more involved in the game plan. And they did do that. Yeah. He got more targets this week. I don't have his target information sitting right here, unfortunately. But, Paul had 4 receptions, and he had more targets than that. And so from that respect, it was good. The guy, obviously, you have to be disappointed with in the receiver core is Josh Doxson. He didn't get a lot of targets. He didn't make an impact in the game. I don't know what to say.
Missed that big one on the sideline in the first half. That would have been beautiful.
Yeah,
if
and
come down with it.
and Jordan Reed, what happened?
Right. What's worse, Josh Doxson dropping? What did he drop? 2 balls, or Jordan Reed not even getting involved in that first half? I'm just talking in the first half. Like it's like you're not hit. You gotta hit these guys at some point. They can't all be throws to Chris Thompson. You can't rely on that every play, every game.
And to answer your question, I think it's totally the absence of Reed that killed us there. Because, I mean, I want big things from Doctson and expect it, but I also I'm not surprised when I see him with a drop like that. Reed's the guy that you need to show up. I mean, he's the Mr. Dependable that you need to show up. When he doesn't, here we go again.
Yeah. What's frustrating about Reed, I think for the most part, this is one game I'll probably put an emphasis on looking back and seeing what really happened. But this is a game where I don't necessarily know if it was on Reed, like in terms of his production and what he was capable of doing today. I don't know if that was necessarily a Reed thing. And I guess we'll talk about Alex Smith too. But Alex had his issues on each level of the field, short, intermediate to deep range, and it was just frustrating to watch. One of the worst parts of this game was when we was out of it, essentially. And to be quite honest with you, we lessened our chances of winning when we saw Alex Smith check down every single play within like under 5 minutes or something like that. And
agreed.
I'm pretty sure he threw 5 passes in a row as checkdowns.
Yeah. And what's even worse, he on 4th and 4 with 18 seconds left, you hit the check down with Chris Thompson. It's incomplete. I mean, that's what you get at that point for even trying to do that with no timeouts left.
That's a Hail Mary moment, if there ever was one.
If anything, like, why are you not taking a shot to the end zone at that point? And you have no timeouts left, so you're throwing it to the middle of the field. All you're doing is just hoping you get a chance to score a touchdown. So, I mean, look, it was the last 5 minutes were very frustrating to watch, and I think we'll talk about Alex Smith, but my whole point was saying that is that I think the receivers did win more than people did win more than people think they did, because we had the same issue last year in terms of what we felt about the receivers. So I mean, we'll see what it looks like.
Yeah, listen,
good observation.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm disappointed in Alex Smith thus far in terms of his ability to hit the deep ball. He's missed more than he's made in 2 games so far, and that's one area that everybody thought, me included, he was going to be better and more accurate than Kirk Cousins deep. He hasn't been. He's missed a couple touchdowns, deep, and it's going to happen. I mean, it's a deep ball. I get it, but he's supposed to be better than we had in the past couple of years, and that hasn't been the case. And I think part of those checkdowns also, especially on those third downs, it looked to me like those were the primary reads, and that's where the play was designed to go. And that's one of the issues I had with Jane is play calling. I mean, for God's sakes, if it's 3rd and 5, throw the ball to the first down line. For God's sakes, I just don't understand. I think that's as consistent as the sun rising in the east. Is Jay Gruden calling a check down on a mid-range 3rd down play, that and him throwing the end zone fade for the millionth time, that doesn't work,
Right. The fade never works.
Never.
I think, and you know what? If we had the time, I would like to go back to the last 5 years and just take all the fade shots.
I'd love to
as a video and do a collage.
I have all of them missing.
I would like another percentage of that one. That's crazy.
Yeah, because I think we hit one to Pierre Garçon once. That was it.
It'd be kind of funny to put that out there, just miss after miss after miss after miss.
Right.
Somebody out there do that for us, because we don't want to take the time to do that. Yeah, but somebody out there do it for us.
We need a statistician, man. Somebody help us out.
Yeah, there you go.
I can go back and get the numbers for it, but I want somebody to put the video together.
Thing. I don't have time to go and go through, what would that be, 50 games in an archive?
Yeah.
That would be a lot of research.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's switch over then. Do we have anything else we want to say about Alex Smith / Skins offense before we switch to the other side of the ball?
Go ahead, Steve.
No, go ahead. I was thinking. Go ahead, Jamal.
I was going to say, yeah, I do. The offense is playing the Green Bay Packers team who, led by Aaron Rodgers. He's one of the greats. Look what Andrew Luck did. He didn't put up great numbers. And we talked about it actually last week that, he's going to give you those 1 or 2 opportunities to make bonehead decisions. And he did that. And when the Redskins defense capitalized, the offense, we could say a little bit better. But my whole point is we're facing the Aaron Rodgers team next week. who he knows how to put up points regardless of who he faces. And the Redskins
Right.
defense is not an elite defense. So with the Packers coming in town next week, it is pertinent for the Redskins offense to fix whatever funk they got going on, fix that shit ASAP. Because when you're in a situation where you haven't scored a touchdown in 6 quarters, that's a major issue. A lot of people thought that they were just milking the clock in the second half against the Cardinals. Come to turn out, they just couldn't score, and they still didn't score this week. So I mean, that's an issue that needs to be fixed out. I don't know what the issues are like internally. They know, they see the film every day. They're around the players. But this is something that needs to be addressed as soon as possible because you can't go 14 more games playing like the way they're playing.
It's an outstanding point, and I'll also point out that the Redskins were +2 in turnovers this week. That DJ Swearinger got 2 interceptions off of Andrew Luck, and the Redskins punted after both of those interceptions. 0 points on 2 interceptions.
Did they punt
I'm
both
sorry.
of them?
I believe we got a field goal on the last one.
Yeah, they got a field goal on one.
So 3 points out of 2 interceptions. Right. And, usually the team that wins a turnover battle in most games wins. And, you just can't – I mean, God bless Dustin Hopkins for, he missed the one long one, okay. But you just can't win football games and Dustin Hopkins kicking 4 field goals.
1 field goal a quarter, exactly.
Yeah, you can't win football games like that. Jamal's exactly right. This team, I thought, along with everybody else, that they were just kind of milking the clock in the Cardinal game. But, you're right, Jamal. There's just a problem scoring.
They stalled.
Hey, think about it this way. They didn't even score a touchdown in the first quarter of the Cardinals game, did they? They got a field goal, I think, but all their points came in one quarter.
Remember already.
Because we won 21-6, right? Or 24-6, something like that.
Something like that. I can't remember.
We went to a 24-9 lead. So,
but
they came out and scored.
All that scoring came, I think, in the second quarter.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, this is actually a great opportunity to switch over to defense because, Steve, you mentioned the turnover battle, and obviously we won that and got some, and it seemed like that's kind of the story on defense. There were some flashes, and there were some good moments. Obviously, nowhere near enough what we would have needed out of them for this game. But there were some moments.
I did misspeak, by the way. Jordan Reed gave up the one, so we were +1 on turnovers, not +2.
Yeah.
But, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Fair enough. I forgot he lost that. But so let's get into defense because you had Swearinger, who had the interceptions. You had Foster, who had a good game. Actually, I kind of ragged on him last week because I thought he was getting kind of outrun. But this week he seemed to have a fairly good game. What happened? There were guys that were performing, especially early on.
Let me ask you guys something. If you see a stat line without knowing the game and you see the quarterback pass for 177 yards through 2 interceptions and a team ran for 104 yards rushing at 3.7 yards per attempt, do you think they would have won the game?
Typically, no.
Definitely not a sure thing.
I wouldn't think they scored 21 points. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly right. I'm kind of mind boggled a little bit about what happened here because you would have thought it just seemed to me that the Colts were really doing well on the ground, but overall as a team they didn't. Overall as a team, that's not too terrible a rushing performance by the defense.
No.
Bottom line is
you never want to give up 100, but
no, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Basically, the difference between winning and losing is that the Colts were able to put 3 solid drives together,
right,
and score 3 touchdowns, and the Redskins stalled in the red zone or just outside of the red zone 3 times,
right,
4 times. That was the difference in the game.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you went through the stats real fast at the top, but if you look at those, you'll see that even the player-to-player matchups like T.Y. Hilton, who was the top receiver for Indianapolis, versus Chris Thompson, who was for Washington. Hilton was 83 and Thompson was 92. There were a lot of similar stat lines. Paul Richardson, who was the number 2 receiver, was 63. Ryan Grant on Indianapolis was 30. You would have thought actually some of these guys outperformed Indianapolis if just reading the stat line. But obviously, like you said, Steve, it all turned on whether or not you can capitalize in the red zone. They couldn't, we couldn't.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Well, I'm sure if you went back and looked at the plays per drive chart, the Redskins probably never had a drive of over 10 plays, did they? At this point.
I wonder. Probably not.
Give me a second. I'll figure it out. Keep talking.
They had a few plays where they made some big chunks. That's why you see Richardson. He had that one big catch, but he didn't do much other than that.
That's right.
And
that's true.
Same with Chris Thompson. Chris Thompson's stats look great because he caught 6 balls in a row in the end. Like that.
Yeah.
It was garbage time stats.
Yeah, the answer to
that
the
is
question
fair.
is
That's...
that the let's see, there were two. The last Redskins had one. The last field goal they got was an 11-play drive, and then the very last drive of the game that ended on downs was 12 plays. And so those two drives went for over 10 plays, but that was it.
Yeah.
That's the question.
And again, they didn't score on either of those, right? Or they
got the field goal out of it. Yeah.
So you're not, if you're not going to have one or two of those drives go for touchdowns, you're not going to
from
win
a football
game.
perspective, since we're talking Redskins defense on Colts offense, I think that we said it in the pregame. The Redskins needed to put significant pressure on Andrew Luck to keep him from looking like superhero Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck didn't have a great game. I mean, they were basically calling, they were playing a short passing game, from the Colts side too. But I don't know about you guys, but I didn't see hardly any interior pressure coming from, except for Matt Ioannidis in the beginning of the game.
Not one
play. But there was not consistent pressure on Andrew Luck. They got to him a few times here and there. It wasn't a complete shutout, but they didn't make Andrew Luck uncomfortable all day. And that's really what they needed to do. And I think if they weren't able to do that, it would have changed the tenor of the game.
I think you're right that they didn't do it. I think that they, at the same time, they forced the Colts to be in a situation where Luck was dumping it off most of the game. It was short passes like we were talking about. And it's what he's been doing a lot of, apparently. Since coming back from injury.
Last week it was. I told you. Last week they played the same game last week against the Cincinnati Bengals.
Hey, and you know what? I know it doesn't put up 400 yards, but it can be effective if you can do that.
He had over 300 last week.
Yeah.
It's just weird thinking about the whole thing in general because nobody here on this team stood out.
I mean, in terms defensively, of Swearinger stood out. That's about it.
Well, yeah, I was talking more Colts offense, but I'm just looking through their list, and it's really disappointing that it was all Hilton.
Right.
Ebron, who seemed like he was dicing us. It was only 26 yards at the end of the day. There's nobody here that should have been able to do this.
He had a couple key ones, and sometimes that's what matters more. That third and, what was it, 9 or something from their own 3-yard line, and they converted it for a screen to Hilton. I mean...
That's the kind of back-breaking pay that pulls the wind right out of your sails completely.
Exactly. I mean, because you get the ball back there, you're getting it back at, their 40.
Right, exactly, and that's a different... Yeah, that's enough to potentially change the landscape. Sorry, did we interrupt you, Jamal?
No, I was actually waiting to see what y'all say, just to see what y'all want to talk about. But I think that I was going to say the defense had some people that stood out, but you were talking about the Colts. And the thing is, just since I was going to bring it up anyway, what I will say is the fact that the defense for us, they did have moments, and overall in the second half things got better. The issue, and I hate the fact that I will say this, so I wouldn't necessarily put all the blame on the defense for them giving up the touchdown, because for you to play well for the most part throughout the game, you have 2 drives. Well, 4 drives. The one that ended in a turnover was just happened to be a good play by Mason Foster, but they were still driving. But you have 4 drives in which you allow the offense to move down the field, but you still don't have no help from your offense. So I don't necessarily blame them for giving up the touchdown. Obviously, you need to make the stop. But if your offense isn't giving you any help, how much better can you expect them to play? Overall, statistically, they didn't give up that many yards. But at the same time, I do like what I saw a little bit, in the second half. Even later in the late second, going into the second half, it was a little bit better. So that's what I was going to say, that they stood out. But like I said, you're talking about the Colts. So
they did look a little better. I mean, you're right. They looked a little better in the second half. But I can't remember if it was which one of you guys said it. But this is the Colts. We've got the Packers coming here tomorrow. Next week. Into Jack Kent Cooke Stadium, and I mean, it's going to look completely different because even an injured or a limping Aaron Rodgers is another level.
Sure.
And this, I mean, I'm not impressed with the Colts talent level. T.Y. Hilton seems to be the only dynamic player they have. Their running back, I didn't think Wilkins is anything special, but he ran for 61 yards on 10 carries on us. The Colts are not a spectacular team. They're not a bad team. Their offensive line was a whole lot better than what some of you guys out there gave them credit for.
Yeah.
Some of the fans out there thought the offensive line was a joke, and it really isn't. I fear this is classic Redskins. We had a good game. How many times have we seen over the past 20 years? Go back as far as you want. How many times have we seen the Redskins have a good game and then stink it up in the very next game against a team they should beat?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. It's a tale as old as time with this team.
Well, I think it's a mentality that players and even some of the coaches have. Like, oh, we're good. Look how we won. We're good. Let's all wear dress shirts. We're good. Right.
No, let's get cute with it.
Yeah, don't get cute until you get into the championship game.
Well, it kind of puts context into Jay Gruden's quote, which was someone said, "Is this a trap game?" And he said, "We're not good enough to be thinking like that." I think was his quote, right? And
yes, that's what he said.
That seems pretty accurate in the context of this game. Although I'll say, I bet you guys, based on what you're saying, you might agree. I bet you we play Green Bay super competitively because we played the Colts so poorly. Because that's also very Redskins too, Steve. You have to admit.
Oh yeah, for sure is. It absolutely is. It's the most Redskins thing ever. They'll probably come in and play the Packers well, but you can't. I mean, you can't be a consistent playoff team in the NFL if you drop games like this.
No,
and the Redskins do it all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, should we give game balls? Do we want to say anything about defense? Do we want to mention anything else
no,
we forgot?
We're at 30 minutes. Let's do game balls.
He just wants to
do game balls.
Get it over with.
Get it over with? Okay. Who wants to start us off? Who's going to be the brave soul? Don't all volunteer at once.
I'll go.
Okay. I'll go next if you want.
On the game balls, I'm going to give Paul Richardson the offensive game ball because he showed up. He was much more involved in the game plan. He made, nobody deserves a game ball in this game. But since we have to give one, let's just make that clear. Since we had to give one, I think Paul Richardson gets the game ball. I think on defense, Mason Foster was all over the place. Played a pretty good game. Mm-hmm. Made some solid hits, some solid stops. So there, and I'm giving Jay Gruden the GOAT of the game for his poor effort, play calling, and the bottom line is he didn't have his team ready. So Jay Gruden gets the GOAT of the day from me.
Nice. Okay. I said I'm going to go offense. Let's just go Thompson, 92 yards, 13 receptions, taking some big hits. Please don't die anytime soon. We desperately need you, dude. Defense, I was going to say whoever Steve didn't say between Foster and Swearinger. So I'll say Swearinger.
Foster, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll go with Swearinger because, 2 INTs, nice stuff. And, I have no further comment about game balls. So, Jay Gruden, you get no comment from me.
I'll go. Excuse me. Game ball, DJ Swearinger. I like the way he played. He and a few others on the defense had a mentality where they always thought they were in it. They played hard up until the last drive. So I give him the game ball. But I put this a lot. As much as I don't like the execution of the play calling, most of the play calling offensively was questionable in my opinion. Things could have been better, if it was executed better. Obviously, we talked about the offensive line and stuff. Playing a big key, but yeah, it has to be better. Next few weeks, next week period. You're playing against an elite talent, Aaron Rodgers, and you have to keep up with him offensively. So I give Jay Gruden I guess he's a big key to this L. This
Why don't you just tag along with my go to the day thing?
Go to the day. I forgot what you said, so I was trying to think of it on the fly. So he's my go to the day. Thank you, Steve, for saving me.
There you go.
Who was your winner there on the offense for the game ball? Was anybody? I think you just kind of went on and didn't actually pick a name.
He refuses.
I don't have anybody for offense.
No one.
He
All
refuses.
right, that's fair.
I went straight to defense. I'm sorry.
My game ball is definitely a deflated game ball.
Oh, I think anytime it's a loss, it's a deflated game
Well,
ball.
sometimes, players, teams look, it's a loss and it stinks, but the team played well, and you can at least stand up and not be embarrassed. Well, this is not one of those times.
No, this is not. And trying to figure out who it is on offense is kind of like, trying to figure out who the skinny kid at Fat Camp is right now.
Just throw a dart at the wall, whoever's closest.
I guess I'll go Crowder for the rushing yards. He had one nice end around. We don't usually those go for -3 for us, so yay.
That's true.
And then defense, I'm with you guys, Swearinger.
Beautiful. All right, before we wrap up then, any talent you see around the league that's available you guys want to rush in there and snag up? I've heard a couple names kicked around. Anybody stand out?
Josh Gordon is the talk of the NFL right now.
Right.
The Cleveland Browns announced that they will release him on Monday, which is basically saying, please trade for this guy. Give us a bag of Doritos for Josh Gordon.
Do we have any Doritos on this team? That we
I
could,
hope
trade?
not. I do not want Josh Gordon. God bless the man. I hope he's got his life together. I'm rooting for him. He's got an amazing story. But the last thing we need is that kind of drama on this team, particularly in a receiver group that has a bunch of young guys. There's not exactly a player out there on the Redskins offense who can ride herd on Josh Gordon and make sure that he's doing the right thing, except for Trent Williams, who, by the way, is one toke from a year-long suspension in his own right. So please, dear God, do not bring Josh Gordon in. Don't at me out there, or do. I don't really care. Feel free to at me. That's fine. But, yes, he's talented. No, that's not the drama we need in this locker room.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't want Josh Gordon. But if it's time for us to start looking at other teams' depth charts already and trying to find a productive wide receiver, okay, let's do it. Let's just cut off the wounded hand and go find something that works.
Yeah, that's sort of where I'm with it, too. I feel bad being like that after one really terrible game, albeit it was a disaster. But if this continues this way, I think more and more people will come around.
Who's 3 deep at wide receiver right now? Anybody?
Who's what? I'm sorry?
Any teams you can think of that are like 3 or 4 deep at wide receiver that we could make a trade for?
Who are you?
Top of the head?
Yeah.
No.
Browns, or not Browns, Steelers, are they deep?
I'm gonna say I always default to the Steelers, but I think it's the AB and Juju Smith-Schuster show right now. So I think it's just 2.
Hey, if you want a bit of good news, at least, the good news is that Tampa Bay beat the Eagles, and Ryan Fitzpatrick threw 400 yards on them. So if you want good news, DC, that's it.
We're still tied for
Fitzpatrick.
first.
Yeah, we're number 1 still.
Yeah.
Hey, that counts for something.
Right.
I'll take it. All right, well, we will have our written recap for this game up tomorrow, actually today, by the time you listen to this. So look for that on the website. And until next time, take care. So long.
Later.
Good.